inform the Senate on the steps being taken to update the list of beneficiaries to exclude deceased individuals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1.
Senator Osotsi, you had made a request, so you're on your feet for purposes of making a contribution to that. If you're not ready, then I will call.
Well guided. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to comment on one of his statements on the issue of distribution of food to people affected by the famine. I noted that one of the issues he raised is about the system of distributing this food. Looks like the system of identifying the particular people who are supposed to benefit is not that efficient. And that raises concerns because there was a recommendation, even from the IMF and other donors, that the government changes from food distribution, physical food distribution, to cash transfers, which was more efficient. It had less challenges of procurement and corruption. And I wonder why the government has gone back to physical distribution of food, which has a lot of challenges, procurement, even logistical challenges, and even corruption. So I think it's an important issue that Senator for Kirinyaga has come up with, and I ask the relevant committee to quickly move in and request for sufficient information from the relevant ministry so that we don't expose ourselves to corruption that is likely to arise as a result of this crisis, disaster that we have. So I commend the senator for bringing this to the House, and I ask the committee to quickly do a report to this House on this matter so that we can save this country a lot of money, which is likely to get lost as a result of corrupt practices by some public officers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, out of the many statements that Senator Murango has said, Kamau, one of the statements that struck me is on the older person's cash transfer. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend and congratulate Senator Kamau that is learning very fast and becoming very industrious. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, because all of us at some point, we shall get old, and we need the government to take care of us at some point in life, except when you are a pensioner. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad that registration of older persons in terms of cash transfer, Mr. Speaker, and I asked this question during the last session of Senate before we adjourned for elections, that it is done 3 years. It should be done even monthly because people grow old. It does not mean that it is only after 3 years that people retire and get the age that is required. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, looking at the life expectancy, we should in fact lower the age of registering under the older persons cash transfer program. Even bringing at 60 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even the Bible talks about 70 to 80 years. 60 to 70 years or 70 to 80, how do you register somebody who is from 70 and above? The retirement age of any person is 60 years, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, in fact, it should be lowered to be 55 to 60 years. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, These are old men. Mr. Speaker, when you go to towns in Kapsabet, in Eldoret, in Vihiga, in Kilifi, you find WAZEE from all those small villages, boarded a matatu, all the way to towns. Mr. Speaker, they are old, they can't cross the road, they are illiterate, they are in poor health, Mr. Speaker. You go and allow them sit on the verandas to be taken advantage by the vagabonds at the cities and centers, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Treasury and Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare must be creative enough, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that even if they should send, in fact, the M-Pesa, Mr. Speaker, to those WAZEE wherever they are in the village at their convenience, so that they don't need to travel using matatus. They are sick. Some of them do not have a support system, Mr. Speaker. We must be creative so that we don't subject our people to go to withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, the commercial banks, and I don't want to name the names of those commercial banks. Mr. Speaker, those commercial banks are taking advantage. And for example, Mr. Speaker, without naming these commercial banks, why would you give a certain commercial bank that does not have even their agent up to the lowest, some small center somewhere in, for example, Chepterwai Center, somewhere in Masab sub-county, Mr. Speaker, or somewhere in Mwombo, a farthest corner, somewhere in Tindret sub-county. Yet you give a bank, Mr. Speaker, that even do not have even 1 or 2 branches in Kapsabet town, which is the sub-county headquarters or the county headquarters of Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, or somewhere in Kilifi. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, let us either use M-Pesa. I know some people might complain that they are being blacklisted through CRB. Mr. Speaker, there is an amnesty from the government up to early next year. And in fact, mercy, Mr. Speaker, that is only given once in a lifetime has been given to the CRB listing holders, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that our elder people, Mr. Speaker, have served this nation. Let us treat them with dignity that it serves by ensuring that there is transparency, Mr. Speaker, and accountability, Mr. Speaker. And finally, when this committee appears, the PS in charge and the minister, Mr. Speaker, must tell us for the last 3 years, Mr. Speaker, for the last 3 years, they must tell us how much have they dispensed to how many elderly people in this republic, who are they, the ID number. Mr. Speaker, because we are being told, Mr. Speaker, in the last era of Uhuru Kenyatta, last 3 months he used 50 billion that no one can account for. So we don't want to be told 50 billion was used to give to WAZEE, yet we don't know what that WAZEE was, Mr. Speaker. And maybe they were being used by Azimio campaigns, Mr. Speaker. So that issue must be handled with properly, because we cannot operate the transition of a government, Mr. Speaker. We want to protect going into the future, Mr. Speaker. You cannot use 50 billion and you cannot account for it, Mr. Speaker. These people must tell us where the money is. What they cannot tell us, they gave it to WAZEE, yet they were using for Azimio One Kenya lands campaigns in the Kenya Republic, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Honorable Speaker, allow me just to go straight to my point without deviating to the sentiments by the Honorable Senator for Nandi. Honorable Speaker, I rise to make a point on the statement of the Honorable Senator for Kirinyaga, and specifically about the older person's cash transfer. Honorable Speaker, if there's anything the government has done well and had a good intention, it is about this cash transfer. Honorable Speaker, when this initiative was begun with the Grand Coalition government, the older persons in the 2 pilot areas